Welcome back to Mr. DuPage's classroom. This lesson is for my Algebra 2 class. It is 6.3, Day 2, solving radical equations notes. We're going to solve and then check our solutions. Today, unlike our last section, the right-hand side or the opposite side of our radical is going to have some variables. We're going to treat it just like we did in our last section though. So if I have the square root on the left-hand side, the opposite of a square root is to go ahead and square it. If I take the square root and I square it, both the square root and the square go away, so I end up with x plus 56 is equal to x squared. Just like we've talked about in the past, mostly in the first semester, if I wanted to solve this, what I need to do is get everything over to the same side as the x squared. So I'm going to subtract x and subtract 56 from both sides. This side, everything is going to cancel out, so I'll end up with 0 equals x squared minus x minus 56. From here, what I need to do is factor. So I'm going to set up two sets of parentheses. Need to figure out what multiplies to 56 and adds to -1. That would be -8 and +7. Now that I have it factored, I can set each set of parentheses equal to 0. I would add 8, so x equals 8. And x plus 7 equals 0, so x would equal -7. Now that I have some answers, what I need to do is to go ahead and check my answers. So I'm going to rewrite my original problem. Instead of x, I'm going to go ahead and put 8 in there. So 8 plus 56 is equal to, 8 goes in for the x on the other side too, so 8 is my answer. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is go ahead and just evaluate underneath the square root. So 8 plus 56 is going to get me 64. So I have the square root of 64 is equal to 8. The square root of 64 is 8. So that is good. That means 8 is a good answer. If I use -7, the square root of -7 plus 56 is equal to -7. -7 plus 56 would get me the square root of 49. Is that equal to -7? Well, this would be 7 is equal to -7. That is not true. So that is not a good answer. That's an extraneous solution. What I want you to realize is I could have stopped right here with my check because I have a square root that is equal to a negative number. Unlike when we're solving for square roots where we get the plus or minus, if we're just simplifying square roots, we would find out that we'll never have a negative number. So if you ever have a square root that's equal to a negative, then you know right away that it will not work. Okay? On to problem 2. Again, I'm going to square both sides. That would get me x plus 18 is equal to x minus 2 times x minus 2. In this situation, I need to use double distribution, so it would be x times x. Keep my x plus 18. X times x, which is x squared. X times -2 is -2x. -2 times x is -2x. And -2 times -2 is +4. Now I have x plus 18 is equal to x squared minus 4x plus 4. Again, now I have an x squared, so I want to, in order to solve this, I need to set the x squared side equal to 0, so I'll subtract the x and the 18 from both sides. That would get me 0 equals x squared minus 5x minus 14. From here I need to go ahead and factor, so two sets of parentheses. What multiplies to -14 that could add to -5? That would be -7 and +2. Now that I'm fully factored, I can take x minus 7, set it equal to 0. X would equal +7. X plus 2, set it equal to 0. Subtract a 2, so x would equal -2. Now that I have some answers, I can go ahead and check my answer, or check to see if they're going to be good. So I'll take the square root, put 7 in for x, plus 18 is equal to 7 minus 2. 7 plus 18 is 25, which would be equal to 5. The square root of 25 is 5. That is equal to 5, so that would be a good answer. I'm going to check my -2 up over here to the right. So the square root of -2 plus 18 is equal to -2 minus 2. -2 plus 18 would get me 16 is equal to negative 4. Just like we talked about in our first problem, since I have a square root equal to a negative number, that is not going to work, which means that my x cannot equal negative 2. My only answer would be x equals 7. On to the next problem. Again, I need to square both sides. So I would have x plus 10 is equal to x minus 2 times x minus 2. We just had x minus 2 times x minus 2. So x plus 10 is equal to x times x is x squared. X times negative 2 is negative 2x. Negative 2 times x is negative 2x. Negative 2 times negative 2 would be positive 4. So x plus 10 is equal to x squared minus 4x plus 4. Subtract my x, subtract my 10. I have 0 equals x squared minus 5x minus 6. So again, I need to factor 2 sets of parentheses. What is going to multiply to negative 6 and add to negative 5? That would be negative 6 and positive 1. So x minus 6 is going to equal 0, which means x equals 6. X plus 1 equals 0, which means x equals negative 1. Go ahead and check my answers. I need to put 6 in for all the x's. So the square root of 6 plus 10 equals 6 minus 2. 6 plus 10 is 16. 6 minus 2 is 4. So 4 does in fact equal 4. So x equals 6 is a good answer. On to the second part. I need to put negative 1 in for x. So I have the square root of negative 1 plus 10 is equal to negative 1 minus 2. Negative 1 plus 10 is 9. Negative 1 minus 2 is negative 3. Again, I have a square root equal to negative 3. That's not good, so x cannot equal negative 1. All right, on to problem 4. Here, before I can actually square either side, what I need to do is get the radical by itself. So the first thing I need to do is add the x. So I'd have the square root of x plus 8 is equal to x minus 4. At this point, I can go ahead and square both sides. So x plus 8 is equal to x minus 4 times x minus 4. So I have x plus 8 is equal to x squared, negative 4x, positive 16. So I have x plus 8 is equal to x squared minus 8x plus 16. Go ahead and subtract x, subtract 8. This would be 0 equals x squared minus 9x plus 8. Now I can go ahead and factor x in both the first part of my parentheses. What multiplies to positive 8 adds to negative 9 would be negative 8, negative 1. So x minus 8 equals 0, so x equals 8. X minus 1 equals 0, so x equals 1. Again, here I need to go ahead and check my answers. So what I'm going to do is take the 8, plug it in for all the x's. I'm going to do that way up top here. So I do 8 plus 8 minus 8 equals negative 4. It's good to remember that we do not want to move that 8 over to the right-hand side. I'm going to keep everything on the side that it already starts on. So I'm going to have 16 minus 8 equals negative 4. Square root of 16 is 4 minus 8 equals negative 4. So I have negative 4 equals negative 4, which is true. That means 8 is a good answer. Now I need to put 1 in for all of my x's. So the square root of 1 plus 8 minus 1 equals negative 4. I have 1 plus 8 is 9 minus 1 equals negative 4. This would be 3 minus 1 equals negative 4. 3 minus 1 is 2, which is not equal to negative 4, so x cannot equal 1. All right. On to problem 5. Again, the radical is by itself, so I can go ahead and square both sides. I mean, negative 9x plus 28 equals negative x plus 4 times negative x plus 4. Negative 9x plus 28 is equal to negative x times negative x is x squared. Negative x times 4 is negative 4x. 4 times negative x is negative 4x, and 4 times 4 is positive 16. Negative 9x plus 28 is equal to x squared minus 8x plus 16. Need to add the 9x, subtract the 28. Add 9x, subtract 28. We get me 0 equals x squared plus x minus 12. At this point, I need to go ahead and factor. So 0 would equal x and x. The positive x would be plus 4 minus 3. Now I can set everything equal to 0. So x plus 4 equals 0. X would equal negative 4. X minus 3 equals 0. So x would equal 3. Again, I need to check all of my answers. So I need to put negative 4 in for all the x's. So I have the square root of negative 9 times negative 4 plus 28 equals the negative of negative 4 plus 4. Negative 9 times negative 4 would be 36 plus 28 equals, if I have a negative times a negative, that would get me a positive 4 plus 4. 36 plus 28 is equal to the square root of 64 is equal to 8. That is true. So x can equal negative 4. Now I need to go ahead and put 3 in for all of my x's. So the square root of negative 9 times 3 plus 28 is equal to negative 3 plus 4. Negative 9 times 3 would be negative 27 plus 28 is equal to positive 1. Negative 27 plus 28 is positive 1. So the square root of 1 is 1. That answer is now also good. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and erase that though real fast because when I work problem 6, I need the room. So hopefully you got that down. If you didn't, go ahead and just rewind a little bit and pause it so you can get it copied down. On to problem 6. I already had the radical by itself, so I'm going to square both sides. Get me 3x minus 11 equals x minus 3 times x minus 3. 3x minus 11 is equal to x times x is x squared. X times negative 3 is negative 3x. Negative 3 times x is negative 3x. Negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. At this point, I need to combine like terms. So 3x minus 11 equals x squared minus 6x plus 9. Subtract my 3x, add my 11. So 0 equals x squared minus 9x plus 20. Well, what can multiply to 20 and add to negative 9? That would be x minus 4 and x minus 5. Now to have it factored, x minus 4 equals 0, so x equals 4. X minus 5 equals 0, so x equals 5. At this point again, I need to check all of my answers. So I'll put 4 in for all the x's. So 3 times 4 minus 11 equals 4 minus 3. 3 times 4 is 12, minus 11 equals 1. 12 minus 11 is 1, so the square root of 1 is 1. So 4 is a good answer. Now I put 5 in for all my x's, so 3 times 5 minus 11 equals 5 minus 3. 3 times 5 is 15, minus 11 equals 5 minus 3 would be 2. 15 minus 11 is 4, not 14. 3 minus 11 would be the square root of 4. The square root of 4 is 2, which is equal to 2. So x can also be 5. Well, that is the end of our lesson. Just remember that before I can square both sides, what I need to do is get the radical by itself. If I do not have the radical by itself, I need to move something before I can square both sides. After you square both sides, you need to go ahead and combine like terms, and then you'll factor. Once you have factored, you can set everything equal to 0, get your answers. The most important thing is to remember to check your answers. You are going to have extraneous solutions that you need to get rid of. Not all of your answers will be good. Remember, if you have any questions over this stuff, please come in and see me. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching the video, and have a great day.